Welcome back, viewers, to the latest researches and news. Currently, we have two major updates that we will share with you in this video. Firstly, about in Addis Ababa and beyond, young men are reportedly being picked up off the streets and forced into military training against their will. Videos shared. And secondly, update from Tigray. Let's go through both updates from every angle. Viewers, according to the latest reports, fear and outrage are spreading across the capital, Addis Ababa, and other regions as the government intensifies forced military conscription. Reportedly, young men are being picked up from the streets and taken to military training against their will, leaving devastated families to watch their sons disappear into a war they never volunteered to fight. We have received a video, which you can see on your screen, reportedly showing young men being taken away in buses toward military camps, with women seen crying for their children. Viewers, forced conscription taking people off the street without consent is a serious escalation in how a government mobilizes for conflict. It moves recruitment away from a voluntary process and toward compulsion, which tends to draw significant domestic and international criticism when documented and verified. The imagery being described here, buses full of young men, mothers and family members crying in the streets, is exactly the kind of scene that tends to spread rapidly and generate public anger, because it makes an abstract policy of increased mobilization into something very immediate and personal for ordinary families, as we've seen before. A similar situation was witnessed during the Tigray War of 2020 to 2022, when people were given limited military training and then sent directly to the front lines against the Tigray Defense Force. And as we've reported on this channel before, many of these newly recruited soldiers ended up surrendering to Tigray Defense Force units rather than continuing to fight. They know the pattern. Previous waves of conscripts were sent to the country's many battlefields, and many never came home. Now families fear their loved ones are being prepared for the same fate. This connects directly to what we've already told you about the pattern of Ethiopian National Defense Force soldiers surrendering or defecting near Rayakobo. If today's conscripts are being trained quickly and sent to the front with limited preparation, that history suggests a real risk of the same outcome repeating soldiers with little training and little personal investment in the fight being more likely to surrender rather than hold their ground. The fact that families know the pattern is significant. This isn't a population encountering forced conscription for the first time. It's a population that has already lived through one round of it and watched loved ones not return. That shared memory is likely a major part of why the outrage described here is spreading so quickly. Ethiopians are not willing to sacrifice another generation for wars driven by political ambition. This sentiment, framing the war as being driven by political ambition rather than national necessity, represents a direct challenge to the government's own justification for continued mobilization. If this view is widely shared, it could create real domestic political pressure on the Abiy Ahmed government, layered on top of everything we've already discussed regarding battlefield setbacks and reported defections. Forced conscription can provide short-term manpower, but if it's deeply unpopular, it can also undermine unit cohesion and morale down the line soldiers who didn't choose to fight, and who know their families are angry about how they were recruited, may be less committed once they reach the front. Apart from this, reports suggest that Tigray's top military leadership has convened an agent security meeting following the latest Ethiopian drone attack on Mekelle, the same strikes we told you about in our earlier coverage. The venue for this meeting has not been disclosed due to security concerns. Keeping the location of a senior military meeting secret, especially right after a drone strike on the region's capital, makes sense as a basic precaution. Leadership gathering in one place is itself a potential target, so concealing the venue reduces that specific risk. A key issue reportedly under discussion is how the Ethiopian military continues to identify and strike sensitive locations inside Tigray. The repeated precision of these attacks has raised concerns within the Tigrayan command over possible information leaks. Military officials are reportedly trying to determine whether people inside the region are passing information about troop movements and military positions to federal forces. Repeated precision strikes on sensitive sites rather than scattered, less accurate hits often suggest the attacking side has some form of real-time or near real-time intelligence, whether from surveillance technology, informants on the ground, or intercepted communications. The fact that Tigrayan Command is specifically investigating possible leaks rather than only reviewing drone detection or air defense capability suggests they suspect a human intelligence source may be involved, not just a technological one. An internal leak investigation like this can be almost as damaging to an organization as the strikes themselves. It introduces suspicion and reduced trust within the ranks and among local communities at a moment when Tigray's leadership needs internal cohesion the most. If this investigation does confirm a leak, addressing it could directly reduce the accuracy of future Ethiopian strikes, meaning this closed-door meeting could end up shaping the direction of the conflict just as much as any frontline engagement we've covered. So today's update spans two very different but equally serious developments: growing public fear and anger over forced conscription in Addis Ababa and beyond, driven by memories of the last war's heavy toll, and a closed-door, secret location meeting in Tigray, focused not just on responding to drone strikes, but on figuring out how the Ethiopian military keeps finding its targets in the first place. Both stories point to the same underlying reality: a conflict placing enormous strain on ordinary people and on trust itself on both sides of the front line. We'll keep following both of these stories closely and bring you verified updates as they develop. Subscribe to our channel and hit the bell icon so you don't miss what happens next.